What's the most epic way you've seen someone quit or be fired? Alex and I were like peas in a pod, inseparable since our college days. When we both landed jobs at the same office, we thought we hit the jackpot. Our office was your typical 9-to-5 grind. Cubicles as far as the eye could see, the incessant hum of fluorescent lights, and the perpetual smell of stale coffee lingering in the air. But amidst all the monotony, there was one shining beacon of light. Alex. Alex was the kind of guy who could charm the pants off anyone. He had this infectious energy that just drew people to him like moths to a flame. Needless to say, he was the heart and soul of our little corner of the office. But here's the kicker. While Alex was busy spreading sunshine and rainbows, our manager, let's call him Mr. Grumpy Pants, had it out for him from day one. I'm talking about the kind of dislike that makes your skin crawl. I'll never forget the time Mr. Grumpy Pants called Alex into his office to berate him for the most ridiculous reason imaginable. You see, Alex had a habit of doodling on sticky notes during meetings. Harmless stuff, really, just little smiley faces and doodles of our boss with devil horns. Well, apparently, Mr. Grumpy Pants didn't take too kindly to being portrayed as the office devil, because he absolutely lost it on poor Alex. He went on this tirade about professionalism and respecting authority, all while Alex stood there with this bewildered look on his face, like he couldn't quite believe what was happening. But here's the thing about Alex. He didn't let Mr. Grumpy Pants get him down. Oh no. If anything, it just fueled his determination to spread even more cheer around the office. And let me tell you, he was relentless. Every morning, Alex would stroll into the office with a smile plastered on his face, armed with an arsenal of dad jokes and compliments for anyone who crossed his path. He'd bring in donuts on Fridays, organize office karaoke sessions, you name it, he did it. And you know what? Despite Mr. Grumpy Pants' best efforts to rain on his parade, Alex's positivity was infectious. Slowly but surely, he won over even the most hardened of co-workers, until it felt like our little corner of the office was a veritable oasis of happiness in a sea of cubicles. So, after witnessing the ongoing saga of Alex versus Mr. Grumpy Pants unfold before my very eyes, I couldn't help but wonder, why did our manager hate Alex so darn much? I mean, sure, Alex had a knack for pushing people's buttons, but there had to be more to it than that. One day, I decided to bite the bullet and ask Alex straight up. We were grabbing lunch at our favorite sandwich spot. You know, the one with the ridiculously long line but totally worth it? Yeah, that one. As we waited for our orders, I broached the subject cautiously, not sure how Alex would react, but to my surprise, he didn't skip a beat. He just shrugged and launched into the story of a lifetime. According to Alex, the root of all his workplace woes could be traced back to his college days, specifically to a little thing called unrequited love. Now, normally, I'm all ears when it comes to a good old-fashioned love story, but this one had me on the edge of my seat. Turns out, Alex's current flame, Rachel, had caught the eye of none other than Mr. Grumpy Pants himself back in their college days. Picture it, the star quarterback and the head cheerleader, the perfect couple in the making, or so Mr. Grumpy Pants thought. You see, Rachel wasn't exactly swooning over our dear manager's advances. In fact, she turned him down flat, leaving Mr. Grumpy Pants nursing a wounded ego and a bruised heart. Fast forward a few years, and Alex and Rachel find themselves working at the same office. You know, the one with the perpetually malfunctioning coffee machine and the boss from hell? Yeah, that one. Now, here's where things get interesting. Somehow, word got out that Alex was Rachel's new beau, and let's just say, Mr. Grumpy Pants wasn't exactly thrilled about it. In fact, he was downright livid. According to Alex, Mr. Grumpy Pants had been nursing a grudge against him ever since that fateful rejection in college, and now that he had a chance to take it out on Alex, he wasn't holding back. From that moment on, it was like Alex had a target on his back. Every little mistake, every minor slip-up was met with a scathing reprimand from our dear manager. It was like something out of a soap opera. Betrayal, revenge, you name it. Alex and I stroll back into the office after a long weekend, ready to tackle another week of corporate shenanigans. Little did we know, things were about to take a turn for the worse, and it all started with a little thing called nepotism. You see, word on the grapevine was that Mr. Grumpy Pants's nephew was about to join the ranks of our illustrious office. Now, normally, this wouldn't be cause for concern. After all, we've all got that one relative who thinks they can waltz into a job without breaking a sweat. Instead, he did the unthinkable. He called in Alex. I'll never forget the look on Alex's face when he got that call from Mr. Grumpy Pants's office. It was a mixture of disbelief and resignation, like he knew what was coming but was hoping against hope that it wouldn't come to this. You see, Mr. Grumpy Pants wanted Alex to swoop in and save the day, to clean up his nephew's mess like some kind of corporate superhero. But here's the thing. Alex knew better than anyone that this project was doomed from the start. He tried to argue with Mr. Grumpy Pants, tried to explain that even if he took over, the damage had already been done. But the manager wasn't having any of it. He had made up his mind, and nothing Alex said was going to change that. So, against his better judgment, Alex reluctantly agreed to take on the project. And let me tell you, folks, it was a disaster waiting to happen. From the get-go, Alex could tell that this project was beyond salvaging. The mistakes were so egregious, so fundamental, that it was like trying to put out a forest fire with a squirt gun. But Alex soldiered on, because that's just the kind of guy he is. He poured his heart and soul into that project, working late nights and weekends in a desperate attempt to turn things around. But despite his best efforts, it was all for naught. The project crashed and burned in spectacular fashion, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. And you know who Mr. Grumpy Pants decided to blame for the whole mess? You guessed it, Alex. It was like a slap in the face. After all the blood, sweat, and tears he poured into that project, Mr. Grumpy Pants threw him under the bus without a second thought. After the dust settled on the disastrous project fiasco, things in the office were tense, to say the least. Alex was left picking up the pieces of his shattered reputation, while Mr. Grumpy Pants continued to strut around like he owned the place. But just when we thought things couldn't get any worse, the unthinkable happened. The CEO called Alex into his office. Now let me tell you, folks, getting summoned to the CEO's office was like being called to the principal's office on steroids. It was never a good sign. As Alex made his way down the long, sterile hallway to the CEO's office, a million thoughts raced through his mind. What could the CEO want with him? Had he finally caught wind of the injustice that had been unfolding under his nose? Only time would tell. When Alex finally stepped into the CEO's office, he was met with a scene straight out of a corporate nightmare. The CEO sat behind his massive mahogany desk, his brow furrowed in frustration, while Mr. Grumpy Pants stood beside him wearing his signature scowl. Without wasting any time, the CEO got straight to the point. It turns out that the project that Alex had been forced to take over was actually a pretty big deal. Like, company reputation on the line, millions of dollars at stake kind of big deal. And guess what? Thanks to the colossal mess that had been made of said project, the company's reputation had taken a nosedive faster than you could say cover-up. Now, normally, Alex would have been shaking in his boots at the mere thought of facing the CEO's wrath. But not today, my friends. Oh no, today was different. Fueled by a righteous anger unlike anything he had ever felt before, Alex squared his shoulders and met the CEO's gaze head-on. He listened as Mr. Grumpy Pants launched into his usual spiel, blaming Alex for everything under the sun. The missed deadlines, the botched deliverables, you name it. But Alex wasn't about to let Mr. Grumpy Pants get away with it this time. Oh no. He had had enough of being the scapegoat for his manager's incompetence. So, with a fire burning in his belly and a steely resolve in his eyes, Alex did the unthinkable. He told the truth. He laid it all out on the table, the nepotism, the favoritism, the blatant injustice that had been festering in our office for far too long. He pointed out every mistake, every misstep, every instance where he had been unfairly targeted by Mr. Grumpy Pants. And you know what? The CEO listened. He listened as Alex poured his heart and soul into every word, his voice ringing out loud and clear in the otherwise silent office. The CEO asked for the proof. So there Alex was, standing in the CEO's office, armed with nothing but the truth and a folder full of evidence that could bring down empires. And let me tell you, folks, he wasn't about to hold back. With a steady hand and a steely resolve, Alex handed over the folder to the CEO, watching as the color drained from Mr. Grumpy Pants' face faster than you could say, cover-up. The CEO wasted no time diving into the evidence, his eyes scanning each document with a laser-like focus. And let me tell you, folks, what he found would make even the most seasoned corporate bigwig blush with shame. You see, buried within that folder were all the misdeeds that Mr. Grumpy Pants' nephew had committed, the missed deadlines, the botched deliverables, the blatant disregard for company protocol. It was all there, laid out in black and white for the whole world to see. But that wasn't all. Oh no, far from it. Because tucked away in the depths of that folder were even more damning revelations, the misdeeds that Mr. Grumpy Pants himself had committed, all in the name of protecting his precious nephew. From covering up mistakes to outright lying to his superiors, Mr. Grumpy Pants' true colors were laid bare for all to see. And let me tell you, folks, it wasn't a pretty sight. But here's the thing. Despite the overwhelming evidence stacked against him, Mr. Grumpy Pants still tried to weasel his way out of it. He stuttered and stammered, tried to deflect blame onto anyone and everyone but himself. But Alex wasn't about to let him off the hook that easily. Oh no, he stood tall and proud, his head held high as he spoke truth to power. He recounted every instance of injustice, every moment of betrayal, every time he had been wronged by Mr. Grumpy Pants and his cronies. And let me tell you, folks, it was like watching a masterclass in corporate warfare. The CEO listened intently, his expression unreadable, as Alex laid bare the ugly truth of what had been happening behind closed doors. And when Alex was done, when he had said his piece and laid all his cards on the table, the CEO spoke. He brushed off Alex's claims, dismissing them as baseless accusations. Frustrated and disillusioned, Alex felt a wave of anger wash over him. How could the CEO be so blind to the truth? How could he ignore the evidence staring him right in the face? With a heavy heart and a bitter taste in his mouth, Alex made a decision. He would resign. He couldn't bear to work for a company that turned a blind eye to injustice and corruption. And so, with a sense of finality, Alex handed in his resignation, bidding farewell to the company he had once believed in. But before he left, Alex had one final message for the CEO. With a steely gaze, he looked the CEO in the eye and uttered words that would haunt him for years to come. "You may not believe me now," Alex said, his voice dripping with scorn, "but mark my words, with your blind trust, this company is doomed to fail." And with that ominous warning ringing in the air, Alex walked out of the CEO's office for the last time, leaving behind a company on the brink of collapse. Now, you might be wondering, was Alex some kind of fortune teller, able to see into the future? Well, I'll leave that up to you to decide. But what I can tell you is this. A year later, the company was indeed declared bankrupt, just as Alex had predicted. Coincidence? Maybe. Or perhaps it was the universe's way of restoring balance to a world that had been thrown into chaos by greed and corruption.